This is Nadine bringing you Ventura Vibe, a podcast featuring the local treasures of people and places that make our community here in Ventura so special. I've got interviews, games, community resources, and volunteer opportunities to get us connected. So let's get started. On today's show, we are talking about preserving and protecting our great natural resources in Ventura. In the studio with me, I have Jim Hines. He's on the board of directors for Ventura Citizens for Hillside Preservation and a team leader for the Sierra Club. So glad you could take time out of your busy schedule to be here with me today.
Thank you so much, Nadine, for having me.
It's my pleasure. Our first question is, what is your main focus with the work you do?
Protecting of our environment, of course, which is protection of our oceans, our mountains, our national parks, and our wildlife, and clean air and clean water. I know that's a pretty big topic. It encompasses everything we literally do, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the mountains we look at above Ventura, the national park we look at offshore of Ventura, and, of course, the ocean itself, all of which are under grave threats at this time from climate change and a number of other political and man-made items of destruction that have an impact on our environment and our lives.
Tell us about your national campaigns to keep public lands public.
That's the exact name of it, Nadine, is Keep Public Lands Public. It does have various smaller units, such as Protect Wild Utah. Southern Utah in particular is the what's called ground zero for a movement to coming out of Washington, D.C. in the current presidential administration to eliminate all national public lands units in the western United States. Those are national parks, national monuments, national forests, national wildlife refuges. And our work there is to make sure that the great places like the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, Glacier National Park, and here locally Channel Islands National Park, and just a little bit north of us, Los Padres National Forest, and our urban national park to the south, Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, are all protected and preserved from the possibility of elimination completely. So that's basically what we do. We lobby politicians, elected politicians, primarily in the House of Representatives and United States Senate, as well as administration officials in Washington, D.C.
How do you do that? Well, I mean, can you describe some of your adventures?
Yes, they are adventures. I primarily meet with our adversaries on this issue. We certainly have friends in Capitol Hill. Basically, the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives is very friendly and protective of our natural resources and national public lands. But the United States Senate is very hostile to that. And, of course, the current presidential administration who initiates all this is very hostile. So basically, it's simply getting on an airplane in Los Angeles and flying to Washington, D.C., where I've set up in advance appointments with a number of basically Republican members of the House and Republican members of the United States Senate and the senior staff, including the Secretary himself, the senior staff of the United States Department of Interior, to present our case for protection of the units that I just mentioned a couple of moments ago. These are not the friendliest meetings one has. These people are very hostile to the protection of our natural resources, and their plans, which I am there to talk about, include elimination or dismantling in various ways through executive orders and what's called secretarial directives. Those are actions by cabinet secretaries to do certain things. In this case, public lands are governed by the U.S. Department of Interior, and the Secretary of Interior and his senior staff make those decisions on land elimination or rules and regulations to allow dumping of toxic waste into stream beds and rivers, and also to allow pollutants to enter our air system. So there are sometimes controversial meetings, but they have to be done. It's a voice that needs to be heard, the conservation voice. I'm one of many who do that. And if nothing else, we want them to go to bed at night knowing that what they do is not very popular with the American public, because basically we're defending the future of America. What will happen if our children don't have a Grand Canyon, a Yosemite National Park, or a Grand Teton National Park to go to? What happens to the quality of life in our American society if everything is allowed to be mined and drilled? So that's, in a nutshell, what I do.
Wow, that's pretty important stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how do you set up a meeting? Is it hard to get a meeting with leadership with the Department of Interior?
Not really. I've been doing it long enough that I've made enough staff contacts at the lower levels that I can sort of get my way in, so to speak. It's easy to make appointments with elected officials because obviously they respond to constituents, and all of America is essentially their constituents. Secretarial offices and the presidency sees it a little differently than that. So that's a little more challenging, but I've been able to get some pretty high-level meetings, and I have some great sources that I work with within the executive staff of the U.S. Department of Interior that gives me some access to meeting with the secretary, the undersecretary, and the various agency heads who actually manage on a day-to-day basis our national parks and national forests and national public land units.
Wow. So this particular department just had some leadership change. Did that change any of your work that you had to do?
No.
Did you have to start over?
No. Even though the leadership changed from Santa Barbara-based Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke, who left earlier this year, replaced by a Colorado native, David Bernhardt. The changing of the guard itself didn't. But the lower staff who serves the day-to-day operations of the department did not change. So those contacts are still there that I've used for the last several years. So, no, I'm still getting in the door, so to speak. The meetings are sometimes controversial. There's certainly nothing vulgar or hostile or physical or anything like that, of course, though they might say things when I'm not there, but that's part of the duty. But we have to do that. And I know it is difficult for the average day-to-day person when thinking, oh my God, I can't do that. Those are powerful people, but they may think they're powerful people, but basically they work for you and me, and they do need to be held accountable, and they do need to open their doors to hear what the other side has to say, and that's the role that I play.
Well, thank you for playing that role. Mm-hmm. One more question about that, because I find this so fascinating. Do you go with a team of lawyers, or is it just you?
Me. Yeah. I mean, we sometimes do teams. Maybe two of us will meet. You don't want to overwhelm people. Yeah. And usually the meetings, like with the last meeting I had with the Secretary of Interior, it was just myself and him, and then he has his chief of staff who seemingly makes them out of notes, but I don't know what he does with the notes.
Interesting. Okay.
And as simple as that. You don't want to overwhelm people. You don't want to go in with 50 items to talk about, because after the second one, you've lost their interest. And that would pertain to anybody lobbying at any level of government, whether it's the city hall here in Ventura, the state house, or the Capitol. You want to keep it short, to the point. These people don't give you hours and hours. You're doing good to get 20 minutes.
Wow.
So you have to make your case in the quickest, most effective, and best way you can. You can, of course, leave written or graphics with them. Who knows what they do with it when one leaves, but you can leave it with them as well.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your local projects. You have one, I know, the Overpass project. Let's start with that one.
We're very, very excited about that. Mountain lions are very emotional to people. People care about mountain lions in Southern California. And mountain lion habitat has been very threatened. And we've all seen in the news the last few months of mountain lions getting hit as they cross the 101 freeway in the greater Santa Monica Mountains area between, say, generally Thousand Oaks and the 405 freeway. Also, just a couple of days ago, you may have seen news articles about a person who actually intentionally shot and killed a mountain lion in Simi Valley. So we're losing mountain lions through those two things that I just mentioned, the killing intentionally by poaching operations, and the killing by mountain lions attempting to cross the highways and freeways. Plus, another major fatality method is the use of rodenticide. Those are rat poisons that are used by golf courses and even homeowners to poison rats, and then the dead rat lays there and the mountain lion eats the rat and the mountain lion dies. So we have a very aggressive program on a number of fronts. You mentioned one of them, to try to help, in this case, mountain lions and other wildlife, large mammals in particular, cross the 101 freeway easily by doing a wildlife overpass. It's like an overpass that you and I would walk or ride our bicycles over, but this would be landscaped and used for wildlife. It is in the Liberty Canyon area, which is in Agoura Hills on the 101 freeway. The project hopes to be started next year and will take 2 years to construct approximately. And when it's done, will be the largest wildlife overpass over any highway in the world. And it has gotten a lot of great positive attention from news media locally and across the nation. Has even made the cover of National Geographic magazine last year and has featured stories by Time magazine and others. So we're very, very excited about that. People say, why Liberty Canyon? Every mountain lion in the Santa Monica Mountains is radio collared. Hence, you'll see a mountain lion in the news, but it has a number like P22. P means panther. The 22 would be its number. And they're all radio tracked, and that is the greatest area of concentration of mountain lion crossings from the inland mountains of the Los Padres National Forest, such as behind Fillmore, across the Simi Hills, and then across the 101 freeway into the coastal Santa Monica Mountain that the lions use. The lions do that for finding mates and also finding food. So this area would be then enabling mountain lions, once the project's completed, to cross the 101 freeway safely. We also have a major program a bill in the California State Senate to ban the use of rodenticides in California that kill wildlife once they've eaten an intended target, rat or gopher, etc. That bill did not have enough votes this year, so we've carried it over until February of 2020 to try to get the votes to do that. So those are a couple of things that we're doing to aggressively protect wildlife and mountain lions, including the wildlife overpass you mentioned.
Well, now I have a couple questions about that overpass. Is that something that's built by Caltrans? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Caltrans has designed it. There's a website, but I forgot the exact name, but you could Google Liberty Canyon Wildlife Overpass. It shows the artist's conception of what the overpass will look like when it's completed. It's essentially the width of a 2-lane highway. It'll be landscaped with trees and natural vegetation. In addition to mammals, people currently walk across it or hike across it. But that's its only purpose. Nothing can be driven. It's not a roadway of any kind or anything like that.
And how do you notify the mountain lions that this is for them to use?
We don't have to. They've already told us.
Okay.
If you go there now, you'll see big signs. Obviously, animals don't read signs, but it identifies it as the Liberty Canyon Wildlife Corridor because they try to go over it. So there is an underpass of a small 2-lane rural highway there, and it's been landscaped and sort of best as Caltrans can do to guide the lions in and underneath the freeway. But it's had some success, but they still go over because that's what they've been doing for eons of time. They don't understand these things called cars and trucks whizzing by them. They have a destination to go to biologically, and they try to get to it. And unfortunately, many times they're hit and injured or hit and killed, as one was done on the 405 freeway last week.
And it's always so sad when we hear that.
Yes. And every loss is a huge loss because the population is small to begin with.
Oh, well, thank you for that project. That sounds great. We are going to take a little break right now. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the interview. I'm going to ask Jim where he gets his Ventura vibe on, and we will play a little game. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening to Ventura Vibe, a podcast celebrating the local treasures of Ventura, California. I'm your host, Nadine. I'm talking with Jim Hines from the local chapter of the Sierra Club. Now I'd like to turn to more local issues. Tell us about the impact you've had, more closer to home issues.
Sure. Here locally in the city of Ventura, is privileged to be bounded on all 4 sides by great natural resources. To the north, we have the hillsides of Ventura, where we had the tragic Thomas Fire, of course, and we work closely, in this case, in my position with the Ventura Citizens for Hillside Preservation to prevent land development on the hillsides. The citizens of Ventura in 1998 voted overwhelmingly not to develop the hillsides, but we still have occasional developers who try to come in and build subdivisions and homes on the hillside. So we're there to watch City Hall, City Council, Planning Commission, etc., to keep the hills in open space preservation. There is a land trust that we also set up at the same time, originally known as the Ventura Hillsides Conservancy, and has now evolved into something called the Ventura Land Trust, which actually physically acquires land from willing sellers in the hillsides for preservation. On the west side of our city is the Ventura River, and the Sierra Club is very involved in a group called Friends of the Ventura River, which work to preserve the Ventura River literally from its headwaters in the Los Padres National Forest behind Ojai till it enters the ocean here next to the city of Ventura. Have aggressive plans to protect the land and water of the Ventura River. And then on the eastern boundary, we have our other river, and that's the Santa Clara River. And we've also partnered with groups like Friends of the Santa Clara River to, protect the river. It essentially runs from the Angeles National Forest from around the Santa Clarita area and then enters the ocean here in the eastern boundary of the city of Ventura by Ventura Harbor. And then, of course, our southern boundary is the Great Pacific Ocean, the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, the federal waters which surround the 5 islands, the Channel Islands National Park. And I have a very aggressive campaign to protect the integrity of the national park and the National Marine Sanctuary. The current presidential administration has plans to increase offshore oil drilling, including the proposal to set 70 new oil platforms off the coast of Ventura and Santa Barbara County over the next couple years. So that's something that we're very, very troubling. It would basically ruin our tourism industry. Ventura's number one industry, the city of Ventura's number one industry is tourism. People come from all over the West and other parts of the world to visit Channel Islands National Park, to study, to whale watch, to go on the islands, and also stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So having offshore oil, not only the dangers to marine mammals and pollution to our beaches, but would curtail visitor experiences, which are so positive, and it's a very clean industry, the tourism industry, versus a very polluting industry, the all dirty fossil fuels industry, which is sort of on its way out. So we have that. I have another campaign. The largest cause of death of whales in our area, the Santa Barbara Channel waters, is the entanglement in what's known as commercial long-line drift nets. These are nylon nets that lay above the ocean floor, and they literally go for several miles to be used to target it in a commercial fish species, but they also entangle and kill whales and seals and sea otters and other marine mammals who need oxygen to breathe, and the whales are entangled in the nets and cannot come up to the surface. So we have a campaign to try to ban those nets from being used.
Wow, sounds like a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Wow. So I did want to ask you a couple more questions, lighten it up a little bit. I want to know some fun ways to learn about the environment and local issues. Do you have some fun ways to learn about that?
Sure. We can take a walk along the beach in the city of Ventura and just kind of take it all in. You know, the beach promenade in the city of Ventura offers us a view of obviously the beach and the coastline and the ocean and the offshore islands, as well as if you turn around and look north, you see the mountains above the city, and then off in the far distance, the Los Padres National Forest behind Ojai. So just getting out there and absorbing it all and getting the positive vibes and feelings that being in the great outdoors allows us to do is a positive step in the right direction. Also, appearing at various events, educational events that are put on by nonprofit groups in the city, such as the museum downtown, and groups such as that, and kind of taking in the educational aspects. The Sierra Club puts on a monthly series in the Ventura Library at the Topping Meeting Room, which is part of the Ventura Library downtown Ventura, on various topics. Our topic for September was last week. It was about the Santa Clara River. So we have different topics each time, and people can learn about the resource we talk about and what they can do to help to protect it. They learn about the history of it, what groups are doing to protect it, things like that.
That sounds like a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to wrap up the interview with what do you think is the biggest issue in the near future that Ventura will have to address?
The offshore oil drilling issue will be major.
That's the big one.
Yes, that's 70 new oil rigs offshore.
So how many do we have currently?
In the entire channel, which runs from basically off of the coast of Port Waimea up to the Gaviota area north of Santa Barbara, 15. Stretch that over a big area. The current administration is proposing a minimum of 70. That's a lot of platforms.
That is.
And not only that, but large worldwide oil and cargo ships use the channel to traverse. Ships from China come to offload at the ports of Oakland and the ports of Los Angeles. They traverse the channel in the international shipping lanes. Can't even imagine a 700,000-ton cargo ship on a foggy night striking an offshore oil platform because there's so many out there and knocking it over. Can you imagine the oil spill that would happen to the beaches of everywhere from Malibu to off of San Luis Obispo coast? It would just devastate us. The 1969 offshore oil spill that happened in Platform Hill offshore of Gaviota, north of Santa Barbara, covered our beach in Ventura. And something like this happening now would even be worse.
Yes, I
can imagine. It would ruin our tourism industry for years.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're going to keep our eye out on news for that. Stay alert, residents.
Yes, stay active.
Yeah.
Vote.
Okay, and then I have my final question for you is, Jim, where do you get your Ventura vibe on?
The beach. It's really hard. You know, we live here in one of the greatest climates on the planet. Year-round, you can go be outdoors and go to the mountains or the beach, and it's so accessible. Those of us who live here, of course, know where all the free parking is to get to the beach, so it's free. It's outdoors. You're absorbing things. And if you're a bicycle rider, there's the paved bikeway that you literally can go from the mouth of the Ventura River all the way to downtown Ojai on a paved bike path. It's called the Ventura River Parkway. Open, free, 24/7, 365 days a year. You can enjoy the outdoors with your friends and family. And Channel Islands National Park, which is just right offshore, is a great natural resource to enjoy. The visitor center for the park is in the Ventura Harbor. They have a little picnic area in the back. You can enjoy the museum and the movie if you haven't seen it. And that's another way to be inspired about protecting nature and learn about the marine environment in that case.
And where do you go just to forget all the troubles and just relax and be one with nature?
I actually go home. I'm the fifth generation of my family to be born in Ventura County. I grew up on my family's ranch, which is now part of Lake Casitas. And so I go there. The land is all owned by the United States government, but I go home often and hike on the trail. It's only 20 or 25 minutes from where I live here in Ventura to get there. And there's nobody around. It's open space, protected land owned by the Department of Interior as a National Wildlife Refuge. So I can enjoy the feelings of when I grew up. My father is buried there, so I can communicate with him, and then I can enjoy the great natural beauty because there's nothing man-made on the property. It's all just nature as it was intended before even my ancestors settled there.
It sounds like an amazing place.
Home.
I'm glad. So it's time to play a game.
Oh boy, we love games.
Okay. The game is called 5 Ways Jim Hines Helped Save the Planet and Ventura. So Jim has to tell me how he personally helped save the planet and Ventura, of course. Jim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let me get my bell.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So, top 5 ways Jim Hines helped save the planet and Ventura. Number 5.
Recycle.
Number 4.
Pick up trash.
Number 3.
Vote.
Number 2.
Engage with our city council and other local elected leaders to express our feelings about protection of our environment.
And the number 1 way Jim Hines helped save the planet and Ventura.
Spreading the word like I'm doing right now on your show through the various news media and public rallies, etc.
Jim, you've won the game.
Oh, great.
Yay. You've won this lovely Ventura-themed, weather-resistant,
cool.
climate change-averse decal, proudly made in the USA.
Great. Thank you very much, Nadine. This is wonderful.
Thanks for being a good sport, too.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it. Okay, now it's time for the Community Chest segment. I like to highlight some volunteer opportunities because our greatest resource in the community is our local residents. Jim, does the local chapter of the Sierra Club have volunteer opportunities?
Lots of them. We do all kinds of great things. The local group here is called, fittingly, the Ventura Sierra Club. It actually covers western Ventura County, Ventura, Oxnard, Camarillo, Ojai, Santa Paula, etc. And they meet monthly, and they have all kinds of activities. September is Coastal Cleanup Month. It's a statewide event throughout the coastal communities of California, and the Ventura Sierra Club locally takes one of the lead roles in cleaning up areas such as the mouth of the Santa Clara River, which flows into the ocean. So that's one of the many volunteer things we do. We table at various civic events like Earth Day and the street fair and all, and we use volunteers in our booth to help us spread the word, so to speak, about what we're doing and how people can help as well.
For more information, you can perform an internet search for Ventura Sierra Club, and the site will come up. And if you're looking for additional outside, by the water volunteer opportunities, the City of Ventura has ongoing opportunities with Leo Robbins Sailing Center, Friends of the Aquatic Center, and Promenade Beach Cleanup with the Surfrider Foundation. For more details, go to the City of Ventura's website at cityofventura.ca.gov. All right, well, that's our show for today. I want to thank my guest, Jim Hines, for joining me today. Thank you so much, Jim. I feel like I've learned so much, and I feel so inspired just listening to you.
Thank you very much, Nadine, for having me.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to Ventura Vibe, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the community of Ventura, California.